All right, Tej, we could start a number of places. We'll get to King and Queen of the Ring. Let's start with Bayley and Becky Lynch. CJ will be happy with this. Um, what? I'll just throw it to you. What did you think of Bayley? Her presentation of her character, her talking about how much she values crowd reactions, and then the interaction with Bayley to set up Intercontinental title defense by Becky, as ordered by Nick Aldis, next week on Raw.
I think I was surprised at how whelmed I was by it. I didn't think it was bad, but for two of the supposed four horsewomen that have been doing this for over a decade,
Mhm.
it came across as really kind of paint by numbers. And not in, the way that sometimes happens to veteran talents that, their rhythm and their cadence feels like it's stuck in 2015 when we're in 2025. No, it just felt stilted. The chemistry didn't feel particularly strong, which surprises me because these two performers have had incredible chemistry in the past. It didn't feel like there was really anything new being explored, which again surprised me because this is one of the first big interactions they've had in their current characters. It
Yeah.
didn't, it felt like somebody was having an off night. The program just feels a little uninspired. And I was almost confused as to why I wasn't feeling more because the Women's Intercontinental Championship, it's been, I would say, the best booked out of the non-world championships for the women's division. I think that, it's had some very, very strong contenders. It's been consistently featured on Raw in comparison to a lot of the other secondary titles.
Mm-hmm.
And it's got two bona fide main eventers, two women who have been world title holders fighting for it. That has been an absolute blessing, and it's gone a long way to legitimizing the championship as a genuine prize to be won. But this promo on its own, it felt lumbering. It didn't feel vibrant. It didn't feel alive. And obviously, by WWE standards, everything is hot right now, but it felt like the crowd was slowing down through this promo. I'm curious to see what you felt.
Yeah, I wasn't as down at it as you, but I don't disagree with your framing of it. I just think with what they had to work with, Becky attacking Bayley, costing her a title shot, Bayley taking time off, Bayley having, I think, to assert in this segment, I'm not a tweener. I am appreciative of your support. Sort of, please give it to me, like almost in a meta sense, like I'm here to oppose Bayley, especially because of what's about to happen with Libra Valkyria. You wanted Bayley to say, hey, when I'm gone, the old saying, you don't know what you have till it's gone. I always appreciate you guys. Given the role she's played, I think it was good for her. And did it come across a little syrupy? Perhaps, like, oh, I love you guys so much. Thank you for your support. But I think that's kind of part of being a Bayley-like babyface, if she's going to be a babyface, to almost pander a little bit, just because I think you should have some baby faces on the roster saying your fan support matters. That happens in sports. Football teams, basketball teams, NHL teams are like, we care about you guys. Your fan support helps give us a boost. I think it's okay to talk about that. Becky coming out and in the Chicago Bears jersey, sort of like, well, Chicago's a bigger market than Green Bay. You just turned yourself babyface. Even Milwaukee. You turned yourself babyface there. And also, the Vikings are the Packers' top rivals. Make no mistake about it, because the Vikings actually have winning records more often than not, and the Bears almost never do. Although, as Becky pointed out, the Bears did beat the Packers last time. So, as a Viking fan, I got to get that in. I'm not crazy about localized sports to get heel heat, but I'll say this was not a regular, everyday heel heat. Heels come out wearing a rival's jersey, in the sense that is the only thing Green Bay is known for. So, that's the only thing they're known for. So it's not like, if you go to New York and you're just like, I'm going to wear a Red Sox jersey, come on, or whatever, whatever town you go to. That is what Green Bay is known for. So I kind of think you do want to get a football theme in there. I was okay with it, other than the fact that it should have been a Vikings jersey.
Not biased at all, obviously.
Well, I'm just stating facts. Vikings have winning records more often than not, and the Bears have had like 2 winning records in 22 years or something. So the chat room can correct me if I'm wrong. I think I'm closer to right than wrong. Without
we're gonna get some opinions. Don't be shy.
No, and
this is great for me.
And I'm not am not changing the fact that the Bears-Packers rivalry goes back a very long way, and in the totality of NFL history, yes, you could say the Bears are bigger rivals. But I mean, the last 30 years, no. I'm sorry, like they're not. And the Vikings Stadium is way closer to the Wisconsin border than where the Chicago Bears play. There's a ton of Packer fans who always come over and invade our stadium, and they're always drunk and rude. It's just crazy. Okay, never mind. I don't want to go off on a tangent. So I already did.
But on a real note,
Yeah.
Just ping-ponging off that, I do like that it was a Bears jersey just because it works as a bit of a character beat for the Becky Lynch character, because Seth Rollins is known for being a Bears fan.
Yeah, no, yeah. If I take away,
it kind of works within kayfabe a little bit more. I don't disagree with what you're saying outside of a few little fun pokes to make the podcast a little more fun. But I do like when WWE across the board doesn't shy away from remembering that, oh yeah, these people are together in real life, because they've done mixed tag programs acknowledging that Seth Rollins and Becky Lynch, outside of their real life names and personas, are together. So it's fun now that they're both heels that they can, do a little bit of those illusions. I like that. It makes it feel like a cohesive universe.
Yeah, I my policy is inject reality when it's the best of all available real and fictional options. Do not inject reality thinking you can get bonus points for a storyline or an angle or a mention that's worse than something you can just make up. There's so much in wrestling is made up and people get invested in it. This idea that, but there's a chance to be more real and that's going to score points in some way at the expense or something that gets in the way of the story you're telling, don't do that. But if you can use reality to enhance something that is the direction you're going anyway, yeah, of course, why not?
Sure.
And so, yeah, Becky and Seth, it's very much baked in. They are acknowledged as a couple, but their careers are on separate tracks. I mean, they do their own thing, and I think you have to respect that. It's not 1972 where Becky's got to make sure that Seth is okay with what she's doing, doesn't steal the spotlight, nothing like that. Becky does her thing, Seth does her thing, and then they see each other, back at home, and that's fine. I am being playful as far as the Vikings versus Bears thing. I mean, that's in with the Seth Bears thing. That is a tiebreaker if they were considering either or, for sure. I think that getting kind of back to the storyline aspect of building this up, Becky or Bayley should want revenge on Becky, but I thought some of the lines they used about Bayley saying, I want to back up one more step. They acknowledged what you said, Tej, which is we're legacy stars. We've been doing this a long time. And Becky said, we weren't supposed to be the stars here. It's supposed to be Charlotte. It's supposed to be Sasha. She didn't say those two names, but essentially that's the implication. Yeah. And we made it. And I liked Bayley acknowledging, you're always 2 rungs higher than me. And it does bother me. And then Becky taking this sort of gracious acknowledgement of reality by Bayley and rubbing it in. Hey, do you know what gold feels like? It's been a long time, hasn't it? But I thought Bayley's comebacks were good, which is, hey, when I have a setback, I pick myself up and I dust myself off and I work hard, to get back, and I'm fighting for the people because they haven't stopped fighting for me. Becky said, well, yeah, you should stop fighting for the people. They gave up on me. They'll give up on you too. So it got into fan loyalty with Becky saying, I don't support the fans, but she's not owning the fact that, and we have to play into the fictional world because Becky, obviously, fans didn't want her to turn heel, and then they rejected her when she was a face. There's some reality and some inconsistencies in how things have actually played out. But the story Becky is telling, and it's close enough, is the fans abandoned me, so screw them. And Bayley's like, they didn't abandon me, even when I kind of turned on them. I mean, she didn't really bake that in, but they like come back to me. Basically, Bayley's point was they like me better than you. I think you want to put that story out there if there's any way that you can tell it credibly. And even though fans, I think at peak liked Becky more than at peak they liked Bayley, although you could argue with that. Certainly Becky was at a higher spot on the card when she peaked. I'm okay with them sitting here and going, all right, let's pluck some things that fans have seen with their own eyes or read about or watched back, and let's lean on those and tell a story. Becky gets back up again, but she's the underdog. Bayley is. Becky has achieved a lot of success. It's gone to her head, and she attacked Bayley. So I think they hit enough points to be good. Also, let's keep in mind, this is not a fresh feud. There is recent history they pulled from. It makes sense they would feud again, but this is also a match 1 week away. It's not building up to a big pay-per-view. It's just building up a match for TV that involves Lyra Valkyria as a key player in this. So I don't think we should judge this on a standard of like, oh, this is going to headline night one of WrestleMania or headline night one of SummerSlam. This segment was to try to give a little oomph to a TV match to help Netflix numbers. And obviously, because WWE is not shy about this, hey, LA Knight, Reed cost LA Knight. So guess what? LA Knight's going to cost Reed. I mean, they don't even run from the predictable stuff. It's pretty clear Lyra's saying afterwards, I'm going into business for myself because that's what you're doing, Bayley. And so it is a setup for a match, but it's pretty much telegraphed Lyra's going to be involved in this. Tej, your thoughts on any of that?
I mean, I definitely agree with what you said. It is very clear that Lyra Valkyria is being positioned as the centerpiece to this feud. You know, they've already teased a little bit of discord between Lyra and Bayley in their kind of post-interview confrontation tonight, where, you know, Bayley acknowledged, hey, look, I'm really sorry. I've missed your calls. I've missed your messages because I've been so focused on this. Lyra accepts it with grace in the moment, but that's a little bit of friction that can be played into later. It's a bit of a weird line if it's not leading to anything else. It makes me believe that, you know, they're giving Lyra ammunition to turn on Bayley, which, you know, we've seen her work heel before, and it's, you know, phenomenal character work. She's got the chops to go very far. They, you know, in comparison to the other supplementary championships which were put on, I guess, more tenured members of the WWE roster upon their inception, they're putting the IC title on Lyra so soon was a statement that they've got high plans for her. And, you know, being able to hold her own against both Becky and Bayley is a great way to cement her as a main event player. I think the reason, and so I love that aspect of it, and it's very clear that this feud is not going to be about Becky and Bayley. It's going to be about how the young gun sneaks up from behind and walks away with the belt at the end. I think the reason I was so down on this is it just felt like an extension of Bayley's booking over the past year and a half, which has just felt a little bit tiresome because she's in that weird grace period where she's very much, you know, a tenured member of the roster. She's a veteran. She commands
she's about
respect.
36 now. I mean, it's like, yeah, I mean, she's been around. Yeah. She's in her prime, but the second half of her prime.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But I think her longevity really is working against her here because, you know, the fans see her as like, you know, one of the old guard because of what the Horsewomen represented in the women's division wrestling at the time and how far the division's come. But she's not quite at that legend status. Like you said, she's only 36. She's got plenty of, you know, career left in her. And because of that, she doesn't get those kind of like feel good pops that, you know, say a John Cena would get when he thanks the fans. Because, you know, you have to look past some of the weaker moments of booking and look back on a full retrospective career. So a lot of that like grandstanding, thank you for standing by me, they don't hit for me as much as they should after a very weak, uninspired world title reign and a babyface character that just feels very plain in comparison to a lot of other babyface characters on the roster. And I think, you know, missing WrestleMania 41 being written off, it felt like a statement, something big was coming, a reinvention for the Bayley character. And I think, you know, this being the first real big reintroduction on the mic of said character to the audience and it just being more of the same, really just, it got to me a little bit more than it should because it felt like there was a missed opportunity there.
I think I went into it thinking there's a headwind that you just described, a staleness. The characters have both been sort of mismanaged in different ways. What can they do with what they are inheriting as they come into this match next week and building it up? And I thought, given that with the headwind and the baggage and the booking, they did pretty well. And I thought they hit on some things, but it doesn't change the fact that their characters have been a bit of a mess. Or the booking has been a bit of a mess. The fan reaction hasn't aligned with the booking, and I thought, given that, they did pretty well. So anyway, I mean, I think we're hit this well. Let's pause. Sure. We'll throw some chat comments in, but let's pause, introduce the show, and get on to other things. We'll bring CJ out of the show if he wants to talk about Bayley for a few minutes too. So Bayley's a big Bayley fan. I don't want to say number one fan. To us, he's her number one fan. Nobody else in the chat likes her more, but there could be bigger fans out there. I don't know how, but we'll get him going. All right. This is the Wade Keller Pro Wrestling Post Show for Monday, June 16th, 2025. I'm Wade Keller, host of the show, the editor, publisher and founder of the long-running Pro Wrestling Torch Weekly newsletter and the website PWTorch.com. Please check that out every day for live TV and pay-per-view and PLE coverage. We got special columns you won't find anywhere else with opinions. We have flashback articles going back 5, 10, 15, 20, even 30 years. My Raw reports from 30 years ago are posted regularly in our flashback section. We have polls and much more. We actually have a poll up asking what Cena match that might be in the works before he retires are you most looking forward to. You can go vote on that in the poll section or on the sidebar. That also has links to a bunch of our podcasts, and this is one of them. Tomorrow, I believe we're going to be doing the flagship with Rich Fan, PWTorch columnist, so look for that on our Blue Logo show. If you are discovering us or watching us on Facebook, did I say Facebook? Well, you can find us on Facebook, but on YouTube, we live stream on Facebook too, the show. But if you find us on YouTube and you haven't subscribed yet to our Blue Logo show, our main podcast, please do that. It's free. It is not, none of that is available here on YouTube. So you have to search Wade Keller in your podcast app, subscribe to the Red Logo show and the Blue Logo show. The Red Logo show are the post shows. Most of our post shows are on YouTube on demand, but not all of them. Some of the flashbacks and other features are podcast exclusive. So subscribe to both the Red Logo and the Blue Logo, and you're set. And check out Tuesday night, the flagship with Rich. We'll cover a lot of wide range of territory, WWE, AEW, New Japan Dominion, and more. But we are here tonight to talk Raw, and we encourage you to participate if you are watching us live on YouTube. If you are, you can join in the chat. We'll be putting some chat comments on the screen as the show progresses on various topics. You can also email us at wadekellerpodcast@gmail.com. And if you're a VIP member or Patreon supporter, look for the link to be a caller today, either on the PWTorch VIP website and my Raw report or on Patreon. And you can be a video, or you can turn your camera off and be an audio-only caller. It's always good to hear from new people for the first time, so consider yourself invited, but regulars are fun too. The other voice you've heard on the show so far is Tej Narayanan. Say your last name again. It's been a while. I didn't look at my phonetic.
That would be Tej Narayanan.
Narayanan. There we go. Tej, good to hear your voice again. Good to see you. Welcome to the co-host chair.
Pleasure as always. How you guys doing, Chad? Great to see you. It's been a little bit. For anyone who doesn't know me, my name is Tej Narayanan. I write a column on PWTorch.com called the SmackDown Feud Tracker, where we break down all ongoing feuds on WWE's Friday Night SmackDown. It's a lot of fun. Come check us out at PWTorch.com.
It's a long read. It's a good long read. I love it. You get into, it's not just, 2 sentences and you're out. I mean, it's a real thorough look at the top feuds with, I think, really thoughtful opinions on what's going on.
Thank you very much, Wade. That's going to fuel my ego for the next several weeks. But
wait till later in the show.
No, don't worry. Later in the show, you'll probably just put more chat comments about how I'm older than I look, which is a running joke every time Wade has me on the podcast. But
I wasn't going to say anything, but you've reminded me.
Oh, sure. I'm so sure. Yeah, I love mixing it up. Coming here to talk about Monday Night Raw. I'm very, very excited.
Very cool. All right, so let's shift before we get to CJ. Hang with us for one more segment here. Top story out of the show. I mean, we had King of the Ring, Queen of the Ring developments. Liv Morgan in the mix, also in a match. All kinds of things. I don't want to get into detoured on the different things that happened on the show before we cover Goldberg and his return to face Gunther. What do you make of Goldberg getting a title shot when his last match was years ago? I mean, it's one thing to come back and go, I want revenge on you, but it's like for the World Heavyweight title on Saturday night's main event. Does he get Legacy, Monday Night War, whatever, jump ahead in line? I mean, I get John Cena making the case for that, but Goldberg, I mean, the storyline-wise don't make sense. So what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, this is where, it's hard to say if longevity still plays the status that it did, because Goldberg at his peak was a genuine national icon. He hit the mainstream alongside, and it has been covered up a little bit because, the winners write the history books. And WCW's kind of biggest successes were downplayed a little bit in WWE's retelling of events. But no, Goldberg was a national superstar. People knew who he was even outside the wrestling bubble. And, when he came to WWE, obviously his first run in the early 2000s, the booking wasn't great, but he had, as the kids say, aura that genuinely could not be replicated, and that carried him through. But I think the last run, the last real run that he had in excuse me, in the late 2010s, I think a lot of Goldberg nostalgia really wore off because they gave him a world title feud in at a time when the world titles were really being bottlenecked, even compared to where they are now. It was dragging down the product, and it harmed a lot of full-time talent like The Fiend, Roman Reigns at the time, Braun Strowman, and I think a lot of people were ready to just kind of say, Goldberg was great, but we've kind of done all that we can with this character. Let Bill Goldberg, the man, kind of ride off into the sunset. However, it is still Bill Goldberg. The man has unmistakable presence. He's just so engaging to watch. Like, I know the ring work purists love Goldberg with a passion, but there's a reason he became as famous as he did. So I can justify him getting a world title shot. It's an easy, quick little program. It brings the numbers. I understand it. Do I think it was necessary this time around? No. I think WWE could have coasted off the old gen versus new gen, Gunther versus Goldberg dream match, and not required the world title to be bogged down in this program for the next month or however long. But I'm not mad at it. I'm very excited. I think Saturday night's main event in Atlanta is essentially guaranteed to sell out off this one match alone, which is very, very rare nowadays. And frankly, I'm excited to see what Goldberg has to say on the mic in 2025, because he is very much a relic. And how does a relic stand up to, in kayfabe, one of the strongest wrestlers of all time?
Yeah. So you covered a lot there, but several good bullet points, pro and con about this. I get it's a business, and I get that if they think they can draw a big crowd, get a big reaction, give Gunther I hope, clean win over a legacy star such as Goldberg was. I mean, Goldberg's, as a caveat, yes, Goldberg was pushed hard in the Monday Night Wars. He got the Entertainment Weekly cover at a time when it so should have been Stone Cold Steve Austin on the cover of that, at that time, very popular magazine. They literally said they had a better photo of Goldberg facial expression than Austin, and that's why they went with it. And Goldberg's accomplishments in the business, match quality, drawing power, just minuscule compared to Stone Cold. But he got big pops. He got a winning streak. A bunch of people who had credibility did jobs for him to help build him up. I could go over all my issues with that era. I have issues with Goldberg and whether he fully appreciated what he walked into. Speaking of people blazing a trail for you, they did, and then he just walked past all the obstacles and got big money contracts and a big push. I would argue did not show at the time a lot of appreciation for it, but I always had this to it. He was part of a cauldron of the most awful politics in that era of and multiple decades in pro wrestling. And he's a good dude. So, like, he walked in and he's looking at this world of cutthroat people. Oh, you want to be my friend? We covered it all, by the way, in the back issues of PWTorch newsletter. You can read the WCW Newswire in the pre-internet days or, early internet days. All the backstage stuff, editorials about Goldberg that I wrote, early thoughts.
Chat, those editorials are absolutely phenomenal, by the way. Would highly recommend.
Thank you. Yep, thank you. And absolutely. And so he was a controversial figure. And he walked into, this political cauldron. He had people befriending him on all sides of, the different pockets in the locker room. We covered all of that. It was tough for him. That, and then the Bret Hart thing, all that stuff. So my point here is he got pushed hard, heavy and hard, made a lot of money, had a bank account bigger than a lot of people who would work 15 years, who also were drawing cards, but were sacrificed to him because he had, and this isn't fair. He had a look and an intensity and a character, and he was believable. And a lot of people don't get that side of the business, or they just don't have the innate charisma to build on, and he did. So I have mixed feelings about Goldberg going all the way back. But I even have mixed feelings now because there is this sort of nostalgia thing of him showing up. I wish the title wasn't on the line. I know it's a business, but I don't think they sell fewer tickets, and I think they protect the sort of integrity of the system of how you win title. We're in the midst of a King of the Ring tournament. to get a title shot, and all these people are wrestling 4-way matches, getting attacked by outside interference, and guess what? There's nothing the ref can do about it because there's no rules when you add more than 2 people to a match, which is really stupid. And you have the Royal Rumble, and I mean, there's all Money in the Bank, and Goldberg just gets to walk out and go, yeah, you took some shots at me and my family, so I want a match in Atlanta. You're next. Title shot. So it just makes a mockery of everything. So I just think they drop pretty well without it being a title shot. In the end, is Goldberg going to win? Yes. And it's a notch on Gunther's belt to have kind of this NBC broadcast television win. Goldberg is a good person to be on NBC on a Saturday night as a nostalgia act, losing a one-off. You know, I mean, you're not losing a pay-per-view match. You're not losing a big house show tour. Not that they do those anymore. So it's the right place to do it in the right setting. So again, kind of mixed feelings on it. I thought Goldberg was fine tonight. He still looks like Goldberg, sweating and twitching and doing all the stuff he does. It's just signature Goldberg mannerisms. He seemed to limp a little bit. I do not expect it to be a classic in the ring, but ultimately that doesn't matter a ton. So some chat comments on Goldberg, and then I'll throw it back to you, Tej. Kyle Fassel says, I wish Gunther would have at least mentioned him again recently or have them show what Gunther said a while ago. It seemed random without that. And yeah, it would have been, I think, good to remind people of that beyond that. Goldberg, Rizella says Goldberg's a loser, didn't contribute. He contributed diddly squat to wrestling. If you didn't contribute diddly squat, that seems like a good thing. He contributed diddly squat to wrestling. The only thing that matters to Goldberg is Goldberg. But he got in the business and was taught, look out for yourself, get the money, and then go be a family man. And that's kind of what his mantra. I mean, he's not going to say it on the air, but yeah, I want my money. JC Scooby 1976 says Goldberg just injures or close to injures wrestlers. Yeah, he's been a bit of a clod in the ring at times. He's a power wrestler, and I think it's on the promoters to a degree that they put him in a position to hurt other wrestlers, but there's money to be made, and I don't know. But Mark Piscetti says, yeah, Goldberg still looks like Bill Goldberg. No older than when he beat Lesnar. It's a win from the optic standpoint. We already know it'll be a short match. I'm not so sure how short it's going to be because Gunther just can, kind of stretch out a match with mat holds and body language and all that. So I don't know that it's just going to be super, super quick. But it's fine. But as Ryan Solari says, Goldberg's last 3 matches have been world title losses. And Michael Merkel says Goldberg is still a national superstar. But Dougie Doug says this, and then I'll throw to you, Tej. It's such a weird strategy to get the product hotter than it's been in 20 years with new stars and then bring back the old stars from when wrestling felt so cold. Is this knocking somebody out in... Goldberg has had locker room reputation issues. Sure. Do you think if you're a wrestler in the WWE locker room and you go, I want to be on NBC on tonight's main event. I want a match against Gunther. I don't know how you get there quickly. You don't want to just be put in there and lose and get spent. So it can't be a top guy. This clearly is a one-off to draw a rating on national TV. You have to be realistic about your drawing power and who you are. But does somebody kind of fit that jumps to mind that would be good for a one-off or a blow-off or even the start of a feud on NBC instead?
I mean, it all depends on what the intent of the feud is, and it's very clear the intent of this feud is to put Gunther over as a main event heel, and, if this is going to be pitched as Goldberg's retirement match, which, we haven't seen it described as such on programming yet, but, in real life, Goldberg has been very vocal about, like, I want my retirement match, I want to go off on a stronger note. So I think it's fair to say we'll probably get a promo detailing this is going to be the last one. So some hearts are going to be broken. It's Atlanta. The Goldberg diehards are going to come out, and Gunther's going to walk away feeling like a much bigger villain. I don't know if anyone else elicits that reaction on such a short time frame unless you really lean into the brutality, which I don't know if WWE wants to do with their content restrictions, especially if they're on NBC on a Saturday night. Given how short the program seems to be, it'll be like, 30 days, 28 days back to front. I don't have an issue with it. If this, for some ungodly reason, stretches any farther, then I will say, all right, this is actively taking up space against, from a younger star that could use it more. Goldberg's never exactly been Shakespeare on the mic. I don't think his promos are going to last incredibly long. You know, Gunther can probably stretch this match out to 10 minutes. I don't think it needs or should go any longer than that. I think the benefits really outweigh how much programming time and bandwidth this is going to take up. So in that respect, I don't have an issue with it.
All right, let's shift to CJ, who is standing by. We can revisit Gunther Goldberg a little bit later on, but let's bring CJ in and revisit Bayley a little bit here, and I'll bring up some chat comments on our conversation in Block A also. CJ, welcome. I see you chatting with people about the Bayley promo. I understand, if I remember right, it's been 15 minutes. You're here to trash Bayley, and you're really disappointed in her?
What's up, CJ?
You're hilarious. Hello. I also have a John Cena question. What do you want to do first, Bayley or Cena?
Let's do Bayley. Let's get Bayley taken care of.
All right. That was awesome. One, I love how the fans gave her the love she deserves. My Baylor shirt, my new one.
Custom, or is that from W Shop?
Actually, where did eBay? The other one was from ExtremeWrestlingShirts.com.
All right. I didn't ask for plugs. I just want to know if you got it officially or like. No, I'm giving you a hard time. Go ahead, CJ.
But yeah, the fans popped huge for her, thank God. And she was kind of all over the place, but you felt her. She was passionate in what she was saying. She's always been underrated on the mic. Is she the Rock on the mic? No. But she doesn't get enough credit for what she does when she's given good shit to say, or stuff to say, sorry. She is better than what she gets credit for. Bailey's a troll. You could block him. Sean Bramley.
Just focus on us and look at the chat.
Sorry. But yeah.
Go ahead.
I was a little surprised that there was no mention of Lyra, though. Very surprised about that.
Well, they revisited during the promo. During the promo, because they had the segment later on the show. Kind
of both. What were you thinking?
I was okay with it focusing on Bayley Becky. I think it was actually better for. I think it was better.
Just with Lyra's, the look she gave, like she was shocked, or like what. Just the look Lyra gave after Bayley did what she did. I was so surprised there was no Lyra.
Tej, what do you think?
I mean, I did notice that look as well, and that's what, and as we were talking earlier, that's why I think, we're lining up for Lyra to continue to play a bigger part in this feud. I liked this week purely being about Bayley and Becky, because they're the two that have the history with each other, and I think you needed an emphatic moment where they acknowledge that history without focusing on the new up-and-comer. And that'll make it sting, or hit so much harder, rather, when Lyra reinserts herself into the feud, whether she sides with Bayley, whether she sides with Becky, whether she goes off on her own, takes the title, and leaves them both in the dust. The fact that we've had this moment of these two veterans putting her to the side just for a little bit and focusing on themselves, it felt like it was done for a thematic purpose. So I didn't mind it.
Yep. And as I was trying to say, CJ, earlier, I was fine letting Bayley and Becky get the focus and then having a separate segment with Lyra going, oh, hello, and giving it its own time. I'm okay with that being compartmentalized tonight. I mean, it would have been fine the other way, but this was about them.
I agree. I was just shocked about it. I'm not saying I'm complaining about it. I assume they'll bring Lyra in the mix next week, maybe, but again, it was very passionate, which I loved, and loved how Bayley got a good punch in there. After Becky tried to slap her, she got the last. And then, like, do we have some before Saturday night's main event, pay-per-view wise or PLE wise now? I'm so used to saying pay-per-view.
Okay. Either's fine. Let's see, June.
I don't 16th. Think so, right? Because we've got
Night
Saturday night's main event in Evolution the same weekend, right?
We've
Pretty
got
sure that's next on the card.
Night of Champions on
right.
the 28th, and then Seven's main event on June 12th, and then Evolution June 13th. So Evolution's afterwards, but Night of Champions before that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
But I could see them doing a triple threat one and then one-on-one or vice versa. But
oh, absolutely.
Yeah. And then one with a stipulation, like some kind of hardcore match or something. Because I could see this being a little more feeling is into it for it to just be a straight up singles match. So I could see there being some kind of hardcore stipulation. Don't you think so? And if you got to pick what kind of match, what are you feeling?
I don't know. I don't know if any stipulation match jumps out to me. Tej, anything in particular jump out, and what do you think of the pacing and timing of getting there?
I mean, especially for the women's division, WWE loves their steel cages as a blow-off. I don't know if we've reached that point with Bayley and Becky, and I don't know if we can make it there by Evolution. But, I could definitely see a street fight or some form of no DQ. We've seen Becky in recent years really, really shine there. We know Bayley can do the same. I am curious, though, with Triple H's shorter cards, if there's going to be a lot of feuds that'll carry through all three of those events, or even two of those events, over the course of a couple of weeks. With 5, maybe 6 matches at most on each card, or maybe even less. Could we see some repeats when there's so many roster members to go around? It's hard to say. Maybe we will just get some for Night of Champions and some relegated to Evolution. Be tough to see how it shakes out.
All right, CJ, I want to shift to Cena now, if you're okay with that. Actually, you know what?
Absolutely.
Yeah, actually, I'm gonna. No, you won't be mad. I'm gonna retract that. I said I was gonna throw in some chat comments. I just will do that quick. Dwayne Carpenter in the chat said Bayley seemed all over the place to me, not focused on the main point. They opened with Bayley, but I thought Becky was on fire. Yeah, it was cheap heat, but I loved her coming out in Bears gear. Chris Johnson said, love you, CJ, but Becky and Bayley had a rough segment, super awkward. But Derek Mitchell said, I like Becky telling Bayley she didn't need to have friends backstage in order to build her legacy. And I'm not sure if there's anything else that I had highlighted. So anyway, that's just a little bit of a chat room comment. So now, CJ, I'll throw to you for the John Cena topic.
Last thing before John Cena.
Yeah.
But overall, not just talking about tonight, one of you agree that Bayley has always been a little underrated mic-wise?
I don't know.
Because some people say like she's horrible on the mic, and that's BS.
So if everybody said she's horrible, she is underrated. But I don't really have a pulse. There's so many places you can go and find people saying different things. I don't really know. I mean, I don't think she's one of the best talkers of her generation, but she's been solid, I think. Tej, what do you think?
No, I'm completely there with you. I don't think, I would rate her as absolutely elite on the mic or anything like that. But whenever she's gotten, the objective to get a promo across, hit her points, and engage a crowd, she's been able to do all of those things successfully, and I count that as a success. If anyone's, like Wade said, I'm not fully in tune with what the internet's saying at any given moment, but if the internet's writing her off as a failure, I call that inaccurate.
Cool.
And my John Cena question.
Yeah.
Within story, do you see a possibility of them doing a storyline screw job on Cena? Because with their explanation, they can't risk him retiring as champion.
So what? This, I guess. Oh, I see what you're saying. So there would be something orchestrated.
They don't want him retiring as champion.
But let me get my question on CJ.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. Are you saying in the R-Truth match or the Ron Killings match or
anytime
future?
this year?
Okay. No, I don't think they will, because you don't want to make I get the threat that Cena's saying I'm going to ruin wrestling and take the title, but you don't want the establishment to save us from John Cena succeeding at that. I think you need the establishment, the promoters, to enforce rules. I mean, it'd be nice if somehow people talked a little more about, push back on Cena, laying out, oh, I'm such a success. It's like, yeah, low blows, belt shots, and interference you are. But no, you can't have I mean, that's like, the mom or dad running out of the house to stand up for, a 8th grader who's in a fight. Like, you can't do that. I mean, obviously if there's danger involved, but like in this case, no, you can't have the promoter run in and do a screw job. Plus, I just don't want to see any throwbacks to Montreal and all that. That was so played out. Not that you want exactly that. Tej, what do you think?
I mean, I'm completely in agreement. And also, a screw job is inherently very heelish. So somebody screws Cena, that goes a long way to turning Cena back babyface, but then who's the one doing the screwing? Either some authority figure or a Cody Rhodes, like an opponent. That person's going to have to turn heel. I don't know if WWE has anyone in that position that's poised for a main event heel turn. And then after that, the entirety of Cena's run would kind of be colored by that screw job, which I don't know is the right story for the rest of Cena's retirement run. Could it be interesting? I suppose so, but it feels like there's a lot more interesting things that they could do with his retirement match and the rest of his retirement run over a screw job. It's an interesting idea, but I think the negatives outweigh the positives.
Yep. All right, CJ, anything else you want to bring up before we move on?
I agree. I really don't want to see it, but it just hit me the other day.
Yep.
Because they have gone to that well a few times, and it just maybe, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yep.
And the story kind of makes sense for it, kind of. But
you could make the story make sense. Yeah.
But again, that and then the fact if we want to see it or not are two different issues. So, but yeah.
Cool. CJ, good talking to you.
Ditto.
Enjoy your week. All right, Tej, let's shift to the Women's King of the Ring. I mentioned that Alexa Bliss now has an opponent, and it's Asuka. Asuka getting the win in her return match. Stephanie Vaquer, Ivy Nile, Raquel Rodriguez in the mix. This was the first of the 2 tournament matches, the Fatal 4-Ways, that had ample interference, and there's nothing the ref can do about it. So that pattern continues. Yeah, I thought it was nice to give Asuka a win on her comeback. You don't want to define her down. You treat her like a big star. Do a vignette last week. Give her a big entrance. And, I don't know. How do you think she looked? Did you gauge anything from crowd response? And do you like her as a possible finalist or not?
I mean, I do, but I think a lot of that is colored by the context of where, the fallout from Damage Control is going to be now that, the faction is kind of quietly disbanded, but commentary is still kind of teasing a loose alliance. We saw this week, in order to get to EO, Liv has to go through Kairi Sane. Asuka advancing in Queen of the Ring seems to hint that alliance with EO holding a world title could still color whatever storyline they have moving forward, depending on, what they want Asuka to be moving forward. And I don't just mean babyface or heel. I mean, do they want her to be a legitimate contender, or are they slowly transitioning her into, the veteran gatekeeper role? Because even more than the 4 horsewomen, Asuka's been around the block. She's won many, many championships. Does she have more value in putting over the next big contender and making them feel plausible as a main eventer? I think now is really the time where that's going to define how far she makes it in this tournament. I'm not mad at giving her the win. She's not over the hill. She doesn't feel like old news compared to Stephanie Vaquer or Ivy Nile or Raquel Rodriguez. But it does feel like she doesn't feel like the one destined to take the title. So I'm curious as to how far she's going to go, especially because, she's being paired against Alexa Bliss, who is, by any observable metric, one of the biggest needle movers in the women's division right now. I really don't see Alexa Bliss getting a substantial loss anytime soon, unless they plan to pivot her back to the Wyatt Six, which in my opinion would be a big mistake given how cool they are right now, but that's a different topic. Wade, you're muted.
Cool as in cold, or cool as in fashionable and trendy? Yeah, gotcha.
Cool as in the derogatory.
Yeah, there you go. That's a good way to put it. Yeah. Asuka and Charlotte would be like a fun feud they can revisit. Asuka can be a gate. I mean, there's a lot of different places Asuka can go post-tournament, during tournament. I think she's probably already in the veteran gatekeeper or legacy star role. I think with what Io Sky is doing with success right now, that kind of fills a certain spot that was kind of Asuka's for a while. But I think if you want her to be a meaningful gatekeeper who can give a boost to people and people still care about, even in a 4-way match where you aren't involved in the finish, she wouldn't have had to do the job. It's not like that would define her down. It does define her up, getting a win in a higher profile spot going into Night of Champions. So I'm good with that. I thought she looked fine. It was nice to see her again. I think, Ivy Now wasn't going to win this. Raquel Rodriguez could have to create, to move on into the next round. I mean, Vaquer could have, but I'm good with Asuka. I think the tournament is a place where you can give away teases of novel matchups in the 4-way setup, but you don't want to necessarily give away a match in the future or create, well, we'll get to it, but an awkward face-face matchup where fans have to choose, or a heel-heel matchup where fans aren't really invested in an outcome. So you can kind of do a one-off heel-face type matchup. So we'll see how it ultimately plays out. Do you have, with the lay of the land right now, any kind of final thoughts on how the women's bracket or tournament plays out?
So let's review. We've got Asuka versus Alexa Bliss, and I believe the other match is Roxanne Perez versus Jade Cargill. Is that correct?
Yeah, that sounds right.
So my money currently is on Alexa Bliss. I think Roxanne Perez has not been built up quite as much as WWE wants her to, unless they really want to fast track the teased Judgment Day implosion, because we've got Roxanne catching the eye of Dirty Dom, Finn kind of egging that along because he's tired of Liv, et cetera, et cetera. Roxanne reaching success kind of brings that issue to a head. Jade Cargill, I don't think, is in line for a world title shot. As incredible as she is, physically, as incredible as her presence is, I think that she still has more to do with Charlotte Flair, the new crashing out heel persona of Charlotte Flair, which for my money is the most engaging she's been in literal years. Asuka, we've already covered. I think Alexa Bliss has the clearest path to a marquee title shot, just given where she is on the card right now. That would be my prediction.
Interested in. I want to get the chat room comments too on the state of the tournament. The Asuka win makes sense. Roxanne winning can help define her going forward. I don't know. I'll delve more into it with Rich. We did a real deep dive last week on the flagship, and I'll do the same thing for that. Because Charlotte was somebody who was like, oh, this can be a real path for her. So it changes things up a little bit when it comes to her not being there and what that ultimately does to what this tournament means. The fact that there's 2 titles at SummerSlam that can be in play for this, you want to also process always what the other option is for whoever isn't facing the winner of the tournament. And so you can talk about the tournament in isolation, but if Jade goes to the finals, there's a more logical opponent for her, and then what options are there for the other? You want to play that out fully. But Asuka Roxanne as the finals makes sense, but you have to find a way to get Jade out of that without hurting her. I don't know. So Darrell says if Charlotte costs anyone, it would be Bliss, because that's who she has a thing with. So yeah, I could see that too. And I'm seeing if we have anything else. So if Liv is out for an extended time, does that mean that Roxanne is going to get with Dom? We should kind of cover that, I guess, as we're talking women's division. Ryan Solorio says if Liv is out for an extended time, I don't know. I've had a dislocated shoulder before in karate. I don't know. You can have a minor one and you just it's immobilized for a couple of weeks and you'll be fine. Others, it's really sore for a couple months, and there could even be some major ligament damage. To me, that didn't look like a high high grade. I don't know if that's a term, like a serious dislocation just from
Sure.
what happened. It looked like something that popped out, needed to be popped back in. It's going to be sore for a little while. And I think they can still tell their stories. So, but Ryan asks, so we'll ask it to you, Tej. Does it mean Roxanne is going to get with Dom like how Liv got with Dom when Rhea was injured? So, like I said, I don't think she's going to be out that long, and she certainly won't miss. She won't have to miss TV time. She'll be fully able to be at TV. So, my initial answer is no.
I mean, what's really interesting about Ryan's comment is I agree with you. I don't think it'll be a necessity that Liv is off TV, but it would create a really interesting unintentional parallel for Liv and Rhea to be out with the same or a very similar injury, because Rhea's injury was also a shoulder dislocation, if I remember correctly. And for Dom to do the exact same thing and get with the new flame. It would be a really, really like happy accident if they wanted to start planting those seeds and give Liv a bit of a break, which, you know, frankly, she deserves. Liv Morgan has been absolutely killing it as this heel persona, as tag champ, as a world title contender. It feels like you could take chicken shit and make a chicken salad if you wanted to go that route. I don't think it's a necessity, but it would be really interesting.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm not professionally assessing the dislocation as minor. Sure. It just didn't, to me, I don't know. I mean, if she's out for a while, I think you really have to change things. But they can sell the injury and create a storyline around it that actually can have some parallels. And it could, I mean, obviously she's going to miss matches because maybe she wasn't going to wrestle much and she'll be fine in a couple weeks. Maybe a little bit limited in certain bumps she takes or something like that. But as Kyle Fassel says, Liv can still be entertaining while injured. She can be on TV and talk. Look at Stone Cold. Derek Mitchell says, if Roxanne really wants to win Dom's heart, it's on record. Dom loves chicken tenders and not chicken nuggets. Okay, good.
That was another great detail that I absolutely loved.
Yeah.
By the way, that Roxanne's whole thing is being tiny, so she gives him the tiny version of a chicken tender, which is a chicken nugget. That's cute. I like that. So
that is cute.
That's fun. That's a nice little detail.
Yep. So let's see. We have SmackDown. It's going to be Perez and Cargill, and then Raw, Bliss and Asuka. So we're going to know. I'm trying to think like in the order of the matches. We'll have a sense. Going back to the tournament for a second here. We'll know if Perez or Cargill win, which should be a window into then who wins between Bliss and Asuka.
Sure.
Yeah. So I was like, in terms of analysis, something I want to check on and just confirm. Yeah, that's the order of the matches. So if Perez wins, then it seems like more likely Asuka wins. Well, I don't know. I mean, I think you could go. If Roxanne wins, it's less good. I think if Jade wins, you're not going to feed Asuka to Jade. That'd be weird. Although I don't know. I guess you could sell that as a legend versus an up and comer, and they could shake hands afterwards. But
you could
cost Jade the match. Yeah,
you could. But Charlotte Flair has also had interactions with both Bliss and Cargill, and they've played up that she's not happy with being left out on the sidelines. I feel like the narrative potential for that has been set up too highly to not do that match.
Yeah. Oh, so
Ryan Solorio's comment just said Jade Cargill versus Asuka, and I just said the exact opposite.
And I'm
Ryan. All right.
Yeah. So Cargill and Roxanne is next week on Raw, not SmackDown. So I'm looking at the Wikipedia page, and it was ambiguous in terms of how they listed this, so that threw me off. Semifinals June 20th and June 23rd, SmackDown on Raw. So yeah, but whatever match order is going to be important. Yeah. So anyway, sorry for messing up. Jade Cargill for Queen of the Ring, says Michael Merkel. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm part of me when I look at this and go, oh, a match is going to give it away. Part of it is like, can I talk myself into it's not. It's more fun if you can kind of imagine, well, maybe they want to do this, and then it's not a match you're giving away you would do a full feud on, but it's a novel match. Like Asuka and Jade would be a novel match that is cool for Jade to have had that match. It means something if she beats her. Asuka's credible enough to seem like a threat, especially if there's interference against Jade. So I actually think they have a decent amount to work with here with who is left.
Because that's another potential clue into what we could be getting is the timeline you mentioned. If the final match is the 23rd, pay-per-view's that weekend, you don't have time to do a build. So it's got to be a match that is either a marquee match on its own or a match that has pre-existing build, which takes away a few of the possible little combinations we got.
Yes. Yep. They announced Cole plugged for next week. Becky Bailey for the IC title, which you talked about. Jade against Roxanne, and then Cody against the winner of the main event on Raw next week. So let's talk about the men's side of things. Jey Uso gets the mystery slot. A little bit lame. They wanted to wait for him to lose the title before announcing him for the tournament. He should just get a title shot as the next champion. I don't think that has to be a rule, but it certainly should be. If you fight with honor and you happen to lose the title, I just think you shouldn't have to enter a tournament to get a title shot, especially a fatal four-way. They can tell their stories, how they want, but it doesn't make a ton of sense that Jey should have to jump through a bunch of hoops as a guy who just lost. But Rusev and Sheamus were in the fatal four-way. They were squared off with each other a lot. Understandable. I talked about that last week. And then Bronson Reed also in there with Heyman at ringside. And Jey Uso wins. So he's going to face Cody Rhodes next week in the to get to the next round of the tournament. And that leaves Sami Zayn and Randy Orton. We had a little bit with Sami this week, tonight, nothing with Randy. But Sami talking about that with Karrion Kross in the mix. So let's take these one at a time and then look at the potential finals. What did you think of Jey being the mystery opponent? What do you think of Jey winning and how he won with all kinds of interference? Take it away, Tej.
I mean, Jey being the mystery opponent, not especially a huge fan because, they've run this match or the potential of this match with Gunther off and on for the past 6-7 months. I think they've had 4 or 5 matches at this point. They don't have especially great chemistry to the point where I'm hungering for match number 6 or whatever it is. And Jey's style has never been suited to kind of the underdog little guy. Little, of course, in this case meaning stature, that can pull out a win against 3 hosses. That's just never particularly been the way he's wrestled. So it didn't feel like, it felt like they were trying to go for, stacking the deck against the babyface with these 3 absolute meat mountains in the ring with him. And it just didn't really come across with the style of match they put on. Jey being the winner, at the end of the day, I'm fine with it because Cody versus Jey on Raw feels like it's leading to a potential storyline development rather than, a match that on its own has a lot of consequences because the two in kayfabe are so close.
Yeah.
I think the match itself, all 4 participants had a very plausible reason to win. Sheamus, of course, has huge amounts of history with Gunther. Rusev is a relatively new return. A win puts him on the map. Bronson Reed is the heater for the new big marquee faction. They all had reasons to win the match, and it was a very well-built match in that regard. Jey winning, it's underwhelming, and he's got a polarizing reception on the internet. If you don't like Jey, if you're not on the Yeet train, then this was probably awful to you. If you love to Yeet in the audience, you probably thought this was the right choice. I think it's going to lead to something interesting, and I'm more interested in that than any kind of potential of Jey reaching the finals. That's where I'm at.
So, yeah, Jey and Cody is intriguing. It kind of plays into my notion that you can put a match on TV. I don't think Jey or Cody are turning anytime soon, so we won't get a full-fledged face-heel feud. If Cody turns heel and Jey's still popular, they could end up doing that someday. Jey could come up short a few times. He was a good sport tonight, saying we're 1-1. That's starting at WrestleMania, you're 1-1. I don't know if we go back a little further, you are. But I think for Jey, he could get sort of I think with Sami's storyline. You could get frustrated playing it straight, playing fair, being a good sport, but coming up short, and then you kind of turn heel because you want to use shortcuts to get ahead. They could do that with Jey too. I don't think that's on the horizon, and I don't know that they should, but just trying to cover all bases. But this is a match that just feels like, it's a novel match, and obviously they'll tell some sort of story with it, as you said, Tej. I think either could win, but if Jey wins, then you think Sami beats him with an underhanded tactic to have a little edge. And then does he choose to go after Gunther, or does he go after Cena? If he goes after Cena, but he used an underhanded tactic to beat Jey, does that really work? So that's one way to play that out. Randy, I think people would be intrigued, I guess, with Randy against Gunther, but we don't see Randy.
We've run that match already.
It doesn't. It would not feel like it could headline either night, But you can't run back Randy Cena quickly. So I just doesn't seem like Randy is likely to win. So if he advances, who's he going to lose to? Do you have Cody beat popular Jey Uso and then Cody beat popular Randy and risk fans turning on Cody? I mean, that was one of the reasons I didn't think a babyface would go up against Cody in this round, because you don't want to tempt fans to boo Cody and have that become a narrative that it already was around WrestleMania season. So I'm a little surprised by this, but Cody was a really good sport tonight. Came out, saved him, congratulated him. He could have let him get beat up, get an advantage. He didn't. He was the kind of babyface you want to have on your babyface roster in wrestling. They don't have to all be that heroic and altruistic and all that, but it fits Cody's character. So I'm intrigued. I mean, my hunch is it's Cody and Sammy tries to cheat and comes up short. That'd be my guess, and then this sets up. This is the route for Cody to then get the shot at Cena at SummerSlam. That's my thinking at this point with the lay of the land. I tried to play up other scenarios just to kind of see if anything tempted me, and I'm not ruling some other things out. But to me, that just seems like Cody beating Sammy. Sammy doesn't necessarily Sammy won't have to use underhand tactics in that match, but he could, or it just could be the frustration builds up to him eventually, wavering in a way, because he does play it fair and he's just not quite good enough. And then that's where they've already laid out the option for Sammy to take on Karrion Kross. So if he comes up short, it also could be because Karrion Kross comes to ringside and messes with him or gets in his head backstage before the match. Kross is going to be could be a factor in whatever happens with Sammy if he makes it to the finals. If he comes up short against Randy, he could also be a factor there too. So I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I can talk my way into a lot of single digit percentage or teen percentage chances of different things happening here. Tej, anything you want to add to that, and then we'll get to our other callers.
I mean, my scenario was a little bit different. I did bank on at least one person turning heel because there's 4 baby faces here. You got Cody, Jay, Sammy, Randy.
Yep.
You've got 4 baby faces in your finals. And hey, look, as much as I dog on WWE for predictable booking, I'll give them credit. Any one of these 4 genuinely could win. This is a dynamic.
This is a good fight. This is good.
Don't see. Yeah,
it's a good unexpected pair of semifinals.
It genuinely is, and it leads to a lot of very interesting possibilities. I think they've been teasing Kross and Sammy for too long to not pull the plug. I don't think there's really anywhere else to go with Sammy as a babyface as of right now. I think the finals are a great way to really be emphatic and let him kind of give into the darkness, give into the cheating. It adds ammunition for Kross as well to finally do something a little more of consequence, and because he's been getting a lot of love now. And that's why I think if you make it that far, you have Jay and Sammy in the finals, because they have a connection that is much stronger and more over with the fans than Cody and Sammy. It's the Usi. You turn your back on being Usi with a low blow, with an underhanded tactic, and seal the win. Nuclear heat. I think that Cody and Jay ends with Jay winning because they've teased Cody and Rollins, and the very typical way they've booked Cody when he has a heel that he's trying to fight his way back to is they give him these little diversions that he says, like, all right, we're going to come back to this, but I got to take this, I got to handle this thing first. That's what they did after he lost to Roman Reigns at WrestleMania 39. What did they do? They said, like, all right, well, before I get back to that, let me go and get beaten up by Brock Lesnar for 5 months straight. And, it worked. That's what kept him out of the title scene. It didn't feel implausible, and they didn't have to waste a year having Cody chase him around. And I think one of their eventual end games is Cody fighting his way back to Cena. I don't know if they want to pull the plug on that quite yet, because there's a lot more they could do with Cena kind of running through the roster. So I think we get Cody getting jumped by Seth's team, and then you can spend the next pay-per-view cycle or 2 pay-per-view cycles running back Cody versus Rollins, which is sneakily one of the best rivalries that WWE has had in the past couple of years. And it makes sense to do it again now that both of them are in such different places and they have a history of working together now. So that's where my brain goes.
Yeah, yep. Well, there's a lot of fun options and a lot of big names. And one thing Levesque is good at, I talked about this last week, it's part of his booking theme, is he doesn't just tease the thing they're going to do. He plants seeds for a variety of things that he may want to pay off later. He may want to pay off in the short term with multiple feuds, or he may never want to pay off, but he wants to keep you guessing. And so what that does is it doesn't lead to a situation where you can sort of headline with, oh, I know what's going to happen here. It seems like he is deliberately trying to create long conversations on podcasts like this, with people exploring different possibilities. And that's good. I like that.
It's fun. It creates the discussion. Yeah.
Derek Mitchell in the chat says Cody versus Randy in King of the Ring finals, in my opinion, is a setup for a feud down the road for them. Ryan Solorio says it's the 2023 War Games winners in the King of the Ring semifinals.
That is actually really true. I did not put that together.
Yeah, that's pretty. I hope they bring it up. They should. They should bring that up. That's a fun little factoid.
Just have all four of them standing in a ring together. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure. Why not?
Derek Mitchell says, I said it last week, the last 3 years, the person who pinned the WWE champion at Money in the Bank faced the WWE champion at that year's SummerSlam. I think Cody wins the King of the Ring and loses to Cena at SummerSlam. Boy, if Cody loses, then who's the person who saves us from wrestling being ruined and the title never being defended?
Dun, dun, dun.
I don't know. You don't want it to be... Well, I guess you could have Cody turn baby... or Cena turn babyface and retire with the title, but then go, I'm not going to ruin wrestling. I changed my mind. Let's have a tournament or something like that. But it's the same effect. It's still him ending the lineage, such as it is. As far as Sammy goes, then we're going to bring Darrell onto the show here. Sammy gave away that he is losing in sometime soon because of how hard he spoke on saying to Cross, as soon as my King of the Ring is over, I'm going to ask Adam for a match with you. He said that like 3 times. And Kyle Fassel just adds, all the star power at the end of the show reminded me how stacked the roster is and how over so many people are. It's nice to see. And that does give Levesque a lot to play with, with Seth coming to ringside. And then, the saves and the standoffs and it's just, you look and you go, my God, there's like so many matches I want to pay money to see in person or watch on Peacock, or Netflix. So that's fun to play with. And then finally, Ryan Solorio says, if Sammy and Jay win King of the Ring, they're challenging Gunther. And if Cody and Randy win, they're challenging Cena based on their brand. Yeah, that's right. I made a mistake. When I talked about the potential matchups, I was thinking more Royal Rumble. Last week I had it right. Tonight, as I'm exploring options, I was like, what
King of the Ring, it's locked to the brand, right?
Yeah. It is. It's totally locked in the brand. So the chat saves me again, although 5 minutes too late. Not too late for me to read it. Not too late for Ryan to point it out. So yes, it is very brand specific, and that is essential when we talk about the various scenarios. So if Cody and Randy win, they're facing Cena, and they both have faced him, but Cody makes more sense. If Sammy and Jay win, then it's Gunther. So those are, Sammy against Gunther, I guess, but you can't have Sammy going after Cena. And you can't have Jay choosing to go after Cena, at least not in this structure going into SummerSlam. So that's very important to clear up as people kind of imagine the different scenarios. Cool. Okay. Let's bring Darrell in, and then we got Andy in Houston on hold. Jason from Australia was on hold. He might call back. We'll see. Darrell, welcome. What's on your mind about tonight's Raw?
How y'all doing today, Tej and Wade? Tonight's show was pretty good building show since they got 4 PLE/Saturday night main events in 6 weeks or 5 weeks. So they building up to a lot of different things with a short amount of time. So yeah. So I wanted to get into it with you guys. Not into it, but have y'all think about something in a different way.
Yeah.
So y'all was talking about the Queen of the Ring and whoever wins. Instead of us looking about matchups and star power and stuff like this, can we start looking at it as this? Who do you guys see winning, have the more story branches once they win it to go off of? Because it's only maybe 1, maybe 2 people who have more of a story branch that they can branch off of outside of and when I mean by branching off of it, I mean by the next match, their storyline is over and it's done with. Like you can have multiple stories roll off of, and I think that is Roxanne and Jade. So whoever the winners come up out of that, they have more of the story branches. So I wanted to see what you guys thought about that and put it in a different way.
You're still muted, Wade.
I haven't done that twice in a show in a while. Alexa, if Asuka wins, it's an unexpected big push for her, after a return. And then there's nothing built in because she's been gone for so long. So it's not obvious how she could branch off. But my hunch would be, she would lose it relatively quickly in her first title defense or after a few, and it would be a means to get somewhere else. but there's not a lot to play with because she just hasn't been around. You'd have to be pulling from legacy like Charlotte. They had a feud going way back. Let's put them somehow against each other. So do you agree that Jade and Roxanne has more obvious options, Tej, than Alexa coming out of that?
I mean, it's hard to say. I think Jade and Roxanne have more built in, but Alexa has the history prior to her injury that really kind of muddies the waters, right? And I think a lot of it plays into how closely they want to continue tying Alexa to the Wyatt Six, because that will most likely envelop her storyline for a little while, and I don't know if WWE wants a world title attached to that story quite yet. Shameless plug for my own column, but I'm talking a lot about how the Wyatt Six has essentially turned the entire rest of the SmackDown tag division against them, and we're going for like a massive team up kind of storyline. It's good stuff, but I don't know where a world title belongs in that picture. Overall, it feels like for singles feuds, Jade and Roxanne are the front runners. I would say Jade is the front runner, actually, because you've got Bianca.
Yeah.
You could go back to, you've got Naomi, you've got Tiffany, Charlotte, any of the other semifinalists to lose.
Oops. If Alexa wins and she's on SmackDown, then she would face Tiffany at SummerSlam. If she won, then at that point there would be a Tiffany rematch. And then you have to look at potentially Bianca Belair if they keep her babyface. Going after Bliss. Jade Cargill is SmackDown base. She could go after her. Zelina Vega probably not at that level where they're currently pushing her. Nia Jax too much of a heel. So yeah, I mean, since you kind of pointed to Roxanne and Jade, and that's where Tej's focus was. I just kind of like with Alexa. I think there's enough options there to fill some time too. Yeah. What are your thoughts, Darrell?
See, I would say with Alexa, yeah, she had past storylines, but she was off TV almost 2, maybe 3 years. Right now, she's been on and off TV so much. They have flashes with her talking to Charlotte and stuff like that, where at first she was trying to befriend Charlotte, and now she's antagonizing Charlotte. So until they get into something, that storyline don't mix. With Roxanne, she's already had an issue with Io Sky. You got the Liv, and even if you need to rest Liv for a little minute, like maybe 2-3 weeks or 4 weeks, that could start something. If she beat if Roxanne beat Io, that even start and continue to break up a Judgment Day, who has played a main part on Raw. With Jade, on the other hand, we can get that heel turn that I know Wade, you've been speaking on a little bit with Bianca.
Mm-hmm.
You also can get the agony of defeat by having Jade win, and then you can have Naomi cash in.
Yeah, we got to think about. You're right. Naomi's got to be in the. You got a tournament. You got SummerSlam. You have the brand specific ways they go, but you have Naomi who can cash in wherever.
And Naomi, she's only been focusing on the SmackDown title with her cash in. She already put that front, especially with this week and how she talked to Tiffany Stratton. So that spawns out a whole different thing. And then that so-called, when they called them the big three with Naomi, Jade, and Bianca, you can play that all the way up till SummerSlam or all the way past, maybe even to a Rumble. So it can go all the way even up to Mania. How Triple H like to slow play everything and stuff like that. So that's what I would mean about that. And plus, you can still push Jade, which she might not be around for too much longer anyway, because she got a movie coming up that they was hyping and talking big things about. So that even brings even more mainstream and crossover potential as well.
Yeah, I mean, you just laid out. There's good. I mean, I think you can make a case, as Darrell you just did, and add some details in terms of even the schedule stuff, the brand specific elements, and then also the Money in the Bank cash in as a factor, and steer yourself to a conclusion where you would bet your money. I still think there's multiple options at play. I think they've booked it well enough. The women's division is deep enough. I think Raw is pretty distinct in terms of its women's roster from SmackDown, with Io, and then you got Becky and Bayley doing their thing. It just feels like that's really separate from Naomi, as you pointed out. And so if you're putting Naomi into the conversation, I think you want to focus more on Jade Cargill winning the tournament because of those options that branch out from that. That makes sense for both Bianca. With Tiffany is a little bit of an X factor, but because of Naomi and Bianca, you can fill a lot of time with that. Sometimes we used to book like, oh, in the next 4 months we have to come up with 4 opponents. It's like, no, for the next 7 months you need 2 opponents. You know what I mean? Like the pace at which they book, you don't need to have a lot of opponents, but what you want is it's not the only thing that matters, but it's a bonus if fans can't predict what's happening ahead of time. But again, you don't want to prioritize unpredictability over what makes the most sense to do, more often too. But I like that Levesque solved that by going, I know what I'm doing. It'd be predictable if I gave it away, but I'm going to throw a bunch of stuff out there and create a deep roster with different scenarios. So it's not. All right, Joel, anything else you want to add before we move to another topic on that, or another caller? Up to you.
Okay. Going into the King of the Ring.
Yep.
Finals and the semifinal matches. If I'm not mistaken, last year in Night of Champions, it was champ versus champ. That's when they did the that belt thing, right? And it was Cody versus Gunther, right? So
no, that was Crown Jewel. That was Crown
Jewel. Okay. So the last few times they was over there in Saudi Arabia, they had Randy Orton and Gunther in the finals of a night in the champion. Then they had Cody and Gunther. So I'm thinking Randy and Cody are not the ones who go over, because we understand that Cody having a problem where he got booed that one time, and they might not want to play into that, and it makes him even more sympathetic. And he already said he got away to John Cena last week by saying, I was the last person to pin you, and I had you looking up at the lights at Saturday night's main event, so I can get me a match against John Cena and kind of repair myself with some fans by maybe losing to somebody else who people wouldn't think I would lose to. And we can play into the storyline that we're trying to play in with the Sammy, because I think the cross thing don't work unless Sammy loses something big, and then they have that match, and then you start to see the transformation of Sami Zayn. And I'm thinking this is a longer story. So that's why when I said earlier, I wanted to throw something different at y'all to see how y'all would think about it that way. Think about it where these guys have longer storylines and they can go. I know we talk about the matches, and we don't want to see either one of those guys maybe face Gunther again, because Sammy done faced them like 5 times. Jay done faced them like 5 times, and we looking into the matches. But I think out of everybody, those two are who the fans are more invested in, Sammy and Jay, in their storylines. And being that they're invested in it, it's more ways that you can branch out those stories and add more. What do you guys think about that aspect of it?
Well, my short answer is I just think Cody's a priority over everybody you just mentioned, and that whatever they want to do with Cody is going to rule what they do in this tournament. If they want to save Cody for later and tell a different story with him, then he can come up short in the tournament, and that's part of his story. And then he faces Cena later and presumably gets a rematch, and gets the belt back and stops Cena from ruining wrestling and ending the lineage. If they want to tell the story that Cody wins and headline SummerSlam and they want to sell tickets, I still think that's the most likely scenario. What happens next if they don't have a whole big array of options doesn't matter. They are in the Cody Rhodes business more than Randy Orton, Sami Zayn, or Jey Uso right now. Jay had his run; it was fun. Going back to Royal Rumble, it felt like a fine title reign. I know some people wanted it to be longer because he was really popular, but Gunther I think is a higher priority too than Jay ultimately in 2025 going into 26 and 27. So I don't have a problem with that. So to me, it's the answer. No matter how much we talk to ourselves about different options and the other options exist, it starts and ends with Cody. What do they want to do with Cody? Tej, your thoughts?
I mean, I'm largely in the same boat. Triple H has been, one of the hallmarks of his booking is playing the long game and finding not just creative ways for competitors to get to title shots, but creative ways to keep main eventers away from title shots until he wants them to slot back into that role naturally. And, like I said earlier, he's found ways to do that with Cody multiple times. And it really just depends on if WWE thinks this is the right time for Cody to fight his way back up to Cena, or if they want to let that marinate, let Cena run through a little bit more of the roster before they get to that point near the end of the year and increase the gravitas, because it's the roster's last chance to get the title off Cena, and you know how it goes. Where are we at with both world champions' reigns? Gunther's very, very early in his. Cena, like I said, halfway through the year, halfway through the title run. That's really going to inform if the prospective winner is going to be fed to a champion or if we could have a title change on the horizon. Right now, there's just too many unknowns in the works to really speculate on that, but it is important to think about.
All right, Terrell, you satisfied with that?
Yeah. I would just say this. One thing people not looking at is after Night of Champions, Cena will be under 15 days of dates left, and you're no longer you're far away from SummerSlam, and they having him on some weeks doing double shows coming on Raw and SmackDown. So I think when we looking at Cena, we're trying to build out a longer tenure than what he got in dates. And slowly you're gonna have him away from the show more often than on the show to be able to build up matches. So I think the title might come off him quicker than what we looking at. And then you can, with those short amount of dates, you can build out the rest of his time and stuff like that, because by the time SummerSlam get here, he could be under 10 days, almost close to 6 to 5. So that's something that no one has been looking at the whole time, even though he's been showing us that every show that he comes on, he's been erasing one of those days off every time he came on before he spoke. But that's one part that nobody paid attention.
So I'll just say, I don't rule out that Cena loses the title at SummerSlam to Cody, and then he takes some time off and then comes back due to Logan Paul. And they do Cena as a babyface, retiring as a babyface, and SummerSlam is the end of the heel run. And then you can take some time off, and Logan Paul, they can get back to Logan Paul for something to be later in the year. 17 dates left, according to Derek Mitchell, by the way. Tej, your thoughts on Darrell's last point?
Please knock on wood. I don't want Logan Paul back in world title contention.
Yeah.
I'm of the age I had to grow up with Logan Paul on Vine. You do not know how annoying that period was, the both of you. Yeah. Anyway, I mean, the limited appearances are something to take into consideration, but they could also go the route of, Roman Reigns in 2024, where he essentially just sat out most of the year, did a little pre-tape because he was so far in kayfabe. He was so far above the rest of the roster. He didn't need to fight anymore. And, you could definitely play it up. Cena misses some of the B pay-per-views before really coming back around Survivor Series. And I believe Saturday night's main event or some event is scheduled for Boston near the end of the year, where I assume we get Cena's last match. I could be wrong about that. That may have been just a rumor, but there are ways to work around either possibility, but that is a very interesting wrinkle to keep in, the back of your mind. There is also the slight chance that we're getting worked on the number of dates.
Mm-hmm.
For all Mr. Kayfabe isn't dead, it just evolved Levesque, that would be a great example of something he would do to kind of work the public and make them believe they're a little bit more clever than they actually are and whatnot. It's just something to keep in mind.
I think if he turns babyface, he could go, I'm extending dates. The tour is going on. I want to sell more merch, and I want to give a few more cities a chance to see me. Yeah. Darrell, appreciate the call. Thanks. Always good hearing from you.
Yes, sir.
All right. Let's get to Andy. Oh, but actually, Danny Tuccio says, where does Roman Reigns fit into all this? It seems like he's the one to take the title off Cena. He also has bloodline connections to Sami and Jay. It's Roman. We hardly knew you. It's weird. Like he used to be the centerpiece of this company, and we can get through a long conversation about the world title picture with the rest of the year, and not even think about him because of his schedule. But Tej, where do you think Roman is in this lay of the land with John? Is it something they should cross paths?
I mean, I've just kind of gotten used to just thinking of Roman Reigns as a non-factor outside of whatever specific little bubble he's in. It feels like they're just kind of slotting him into the Brock Lesnar role where he shows up maybe 4 or 5 times a year. He has a marquee match, and then he just goes off to do whatever he's doing. He's going to be in a movie as well, and he's been more open than the rest of the roster about wanting Hollywood to be the next phase of his life. Obviously, there's been rumors about his health for years. He wants to spend a lot of time with his family, and the guy's earned it, carried the company on his back for however many years. If he returns and works his way into a title program, that'd be awesome. But at this point, I found it futile to really kind of work him into any booking possibilities that I've come up with.
Darrell says, I think Roman can come in when Seth goes to cash in his shot on whoever he tries to cash in on, because there's a history there. All right, we'll go to Andy in Houston next. Andy, welcome. What's in your mind about Raw tonight?
Not much. I missed the beginning of the live cast here, so I don't know how much y'all talked about the women. I'm assuming a good night.
We led with it. Yep.
Did y'all speculate whether Liv had a dislocated elbow or something based on the replay footage?
So if I'm right, Tej, after the break, Cole, or a little bit later in the show, Cole said it was diagnosed as a dislocated shoulder, right?
That is correct, yes.
Yep. So yeah, the way she's holding her arm, having had a dislocated shoulder, it's just the once you get it back in place, which took me like 45 minutes on a hospital visit, it was more severe.
Thanks for that image.
Yeah, yes, it was excruciating getting in and out of the car. The doctor came up to me and he's like, all right, after waiting in the emergency room for a while, and he's like, all right, extend your arm. And he goes, I'm going to work on it for about 5 minutes. If it doesn't come in, if it doesn't pop back in, we'll go to another thing, get you painkillers or surgery. And then he literally grabbed my wrist and he just like grabbed my wrist bones and he twisted like that and it popped back in. He knew exactly what to do and how to torque it. It was such a relief. And then it was so sore for like a month. So it didn't look like Liv was as miserable as I was after that. But I also know she didn't look happy either. I'm not, maybe she might have a higher pain tolerance than me as a teenager. But whatever. I'm just totally speculating on what the future, how long she's out. But the way she was holding her arm after dislocation, what you don't want is any pressure on those tendons and ligaments that hold it in place. So I think she was holding her elbow up, so there was no body weight pulling down on the shoulder. That was, I'm sure, intensely achy at that point. So that's my observation on it. Yeah.
Well, I guess
whatever. Yeah.
Go ahead, Tej.
Sorry, Andy, go ahead.
Hold on, Andy. No, I'm choosing Tej so we don't talk over each other for a minute. Two people at a stop sign going, you go.
We're too polite. What can we say? He's from Texas. I was born in Texas. Southern hospitality.
Nice.
Anyway, I just wanted to say, whatever the case may be, they showed replays of the injury, which WWE very, very rarely does, unless it's, confirmed to not be very severe. So I don't think it's going to be as big of a factor as, Zoe Stark's knee injury that essentially wrote her off for the foreseeable future. Back to you, Andy.
Andy.
Well, I guess if it's not too significant of a recovery, then she should still be able to make dates and do, any kind of non-wrestling segment. So she's not necessarily out of the limelight for the foreseeable future.
Absolutely, Andy. I just say, because we covered this so extensively before you heard the show. I'll just refer you back to our, because we made the same point.
No, I got you. And so you probably talked about. I heard a lot of the talk about Queen of the Ring, and I like Darrell's point about the branching storylines. But I guess I'm also thinking about the optics of the Saudi Arabia show itself and how WWE likes to look at who presents the best as a king or a queen when they want with that kind of gimmick. And I would say Jade fits that profile, but if it really is about the title program of the respective show the winner belongs to, I would really love to see a SummerSlam program with Asuka and Io. Have they ever actually wrestled each other in WWE? It feels like they've tagged together, but have never actually gone one-on-one against each other. And that's kind of a disappointment if that's the case, because yeah, they were big deals both prior to their WWE run.
I'm seeing on the internet a September 22nd, 2023 match between Io and Asuka. That was on SmackDown. And there was a Charlotte Flair triple threat at 1.2. Don't know if there were more, but it wouldn't be a first time. But I mean, it's not a big deal either way. If they went back to it. From let me jump in, Andy, and get Tej's thoughts on the optics in Saudi Arabia. To me, Roxanne, Jade, Alexa, Asuka, they can all win. I don't think there's any optic that would disqualify them, and I don't know that WWE is booking with a big concern for that at this point. I think Saudi Arabia just wants to be in the mix as part of the flow and not have a bunch of extra special attention paid to the regime dictating things at this point. I think they want to sports watch people into thinking they're just another stop on the tour.
No, I didn't mean optics in the sense of the match happening in Saudi Arabia. I meant like the optics of who looks like a king or a queen. Who's the king booker of this tournament bracket, and that and the way Nia carried the tiara around, and so to me.
Andy, here's what I'd say to that. I sorry for the confusion. I thought when you brought up Saudi Arabia, you specifically meant the optics for that country. But I think because there's a quick turnaround to SummerSlam this year, early August, first weekend, I don't think they care. They're not. It's not like they're going to have the gimmick become part of the person's persona long term. They'll for a few weeks they'll do it. But I don't think it's a. I think they're going to book based on the story they want to tell for someone winning a tournament to earn a title shot at SummerSlam, and the Queen and King thing is sort of. It's a tradition, but I don't think it's going to factor in storyline-wise to diverting them from a different path they'd rather do. Tej, do you agree with that?
Yeah, I do. And I think that, especially in recent years, they've made it clear that it is not mandatory to add a crown to your gimmick if you win King of the Ring. Like Gunther won King of the Ring. Yep. I think he basically made it a point to say, like, the crown looks stupid and I don't want it. Get that away from me. Just give me my title shot.
Yeah.
Obviously the crown is incredible heel heat, King Booker, King Harley Race, King Haku back in the day. But at the end of the day, that is just a prop. It's the title shot thing matters more in this case.
Yep. All right, Andy. Anything else you want to sneak in?
Not much other than Karrion Kross, I guess. What do y'all see as the end game for him? Because I like all the talking segments, but Sammy made a good point that you need to put up or shut up in the ring, and it's like I don't know if it's management or Karrion, but they're afraid to put him in a wrestling match on Raw to actually present himself as a big deal.
So Karen is a delightful heel, messing with people's heads, making suggestions, and then disappearing. Sammy is vulnerable to that kind of mind games, or to get him worked up. But Sammy is good enough wrestler. I think they can tell a decent enough story and have a decent match when they finally do have a match. Tej, what do you think?
Karrion Kross, and I mean this with no disrespect because I love him as a performer, is one of the most uninteresting workers in the ring from my perspective. And I don't mean he's bad. There's just something about the way he moves in ring that is not exciting. And that's why.
Well, the key, I talked about this when he was all the rage in NXT and coming out of TNA. And I was like, wrestlers are telling me when he gets the main roster, nobody's going to put up with the fact that he doesn't take bumps. He's scared to bump. He doesn't flat back bump. I don't know if he's got an injury or concern, but if you can't put your finger on why he's not exciting, it's because he doesn't take bumps. You just can't.
That is blowing my mind. You're right. I don't think I've seen him take a lot of clean bumps. It just looks.
And he does favor one side.
Yeah.
He favors one side, which can cause an injury. So I don't know if he has a pre-existing condition or he's just not comfortable taking bumps, or I don't know. I don't know, have the inside story on that, but I know wrestlers who I, chat with about things when I want wrestlers' insight were just like, oh yeah, Wade, you're right when you say, Karrion Kross won't be a big star on the main roster, but one of the reasons you're leaving out is just watch his next match. He just doesn't really take bumps. It's not that he's slow or plodding or he's not that tall compared to the rosters in TNA and NXT where his gimmick he needs to be taller than his opponent to make up with the fact that he's not creating movement. A lot of things working against him. But All that said, I find his current character, as I said, I don't say this, use this term much for it, but it's delightful. He's in his right spot, hovering, just lurking backstage and getting in people's heads. And Sammy's a decent enough opponent to get a decent match out of him, and now we're going to get it. So yeah, that's what I think. Anything you want to add to that, Tej? I kind of jumped in with my no bump thing, so.
No, you're totally fine. I just want to make it clear. I don't think he's bad at all in ring, just uninteresting. Which, hey, you know what? Things to be. If we were in a different era of wrestling, Karrion Kross would be an incredible slimy heel manager. You know, he would stand up there with like prime like Bobby the Brain Heenan, maybe a little less witty and doofy, a little bit more like legitimately intimidating, but he has a future there. It's just melding that with the in-ring, which is kind of a necessity in today's WWE, is where it all kind of, I wouldn't say falls apart, but it definitely stutters a lot.
And I would not feel bad saying Karrion Kross is bad in the ring. I mean, if he's not, who do we save that term for? I mean, he's not there because of his work. He's there because of his look, his promos, even if I think they've been kind of a bit cartoonish until this latest incarnation. But, I mean, I think he might be bad in the ring. I mean, Adam Cole, worked hard to get something out of him, and he got something out of him. But I don't know. I mean, among the people who are paid to be pro wrestlers, he's kind of on the bottom fifth, So that might mean he's bad relative to others. Doesn't mean he's an embarrassment. You know what I mean? I think you said it right, Tej, when you're like, he's just not interesting. He's like, you don't look forward to the battle because he is somewhat limited. He's in a narrow lane. Ryan Solorio says it's hard to take Kross serious after Adam Cole destroyed him on the mic in NXT.
I was just about to say that. You said like Adam Cole built him up. I was like, yeah, and then tore him down right after with. Which, to this day, I still think that's Adam Cole's best promo of his career. It's just absolutely tearing down Karrion Kross. For anyone who hasn't seen that promo, Prime NXT Black and Gold, please go look it up. It's a masterclass in taking down a heel.
Sadler Version 3 said, who would have thought Adam Cole would decline as much as Kross did after NXT? LOL. Yeah.
Oh, the AEW mark in me is chomping at the bit right now, but we'll leave that for another discussion.
Will in the chat said, Kross is a cartoon. It's not supposed to be like, he is cartoonish. All right, let's. We have limited time here. I want to get to mailbag, but I want to get to Jason D in Australia also. Jason, welcome. What is on your mind about Raw tonight? Good to hear from you.
Yeah, thanks, Wade and Tej. Yeah, look, I'll be quick. It's easier for me to call in than to sit there on the chat. The way
either way works. We like the mix we like the mix.
Yeah, it's just easier for me just to call in quickly. I just wanted to say that. In relation to the Goldberg thing, right? For me, I don't agree with him getting a world title shot. The easier thing for him to say is that, I haven't earned a title shot against you, Gunther, but I have earned a shot against you personally. And that wouldn't cause any issues with the fans because no one believes that he's going to win the championship and fulfill the duties of a champion. So if he makes it personal against Gunther, that actually makes it more menacing for Gunther because now he's got a guy coming against him personally. He's not interested in the championship. So I believe
Tej, isn't that WWE playing to the ultra casual audience, which I don't even know if it exists anymore, where they're like, oh, I got to tune in Saturday because it's a world title match. Because otherwise, Jason's right.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it hurts the integrity of earning title shot, and it's not needed for people to watch the product regularly. I think they just want to tell NBC and casual fans there's a world title on the line tonight.
It's an ode to the old Saturday night's main events, just. And tonight on NBC, we've got a world title match on the line. Tune in, folks. It's old school wrestling. It has a time, it has a place, and it's part of the nostalgia. And for Goldberg's last match, it fits as warranted or not. It does fit the aesthetic. I'll give him that.
Yes, but if they are going to promote it as his last match, right? So what he's going? I don't want to.
He's going to ruin wrestling. The whole wrestling's going to be ruined. There's no world titles.
Exactly.
John Cena and Goldberg retire with belts.
Cena and Goldberg as world champs in the year of our Lord, 2025.
Wow.
That's all right. I find it ironic that this King of the Ring tournament, right, it's actually quite grueling, this tournament. You have to win a fatal four-way, then you have to win a semi, then you have to win a final in order to qualify to earn a shot against the champion, whereas the Royal Rumble for WrestleMania, it's pretty much a luck of the draw. You can sit there, you can be in the corner of the ring, fall asleep. You know what I mean? It's actually more grueling to win this championship to qualify for a title at SummerSlam, which is meant to be the second biggest event. And with SummerSlam, you don't get to pick which champion you want. You're sort of restricted to the brand one. So That thing's kind of backwards.
I think WWE should have a rule in the Rumble that you can get counted out. I mean, I think it's farcical that, Roman Reigns can take a 7-minute break at ringside and then win with a couple moves after a guy's beat up. And that was as a babyface. So yeah, the Rumble is farcical. That's why when people go, "Oh, this isn't a good way to earn a title shot," I'm like, yeah, but the Royal Rumble's really over and the bar is super low in terms of what qualifies as earning a shot. But every point you made is correct, Jason. I mean, it is more grueling in a kind of, storyline sense. Fatal 4-ways, you can kind of pick your spots. I mean, that's been sort of a narrative and commentary. You kind of want to hang on the sidelines if you can watch other people beat themselves up, but still, at least in the end, it's one-on-one and then one-on-one.
And I just find that with the final 8 people remaining with the men and the women, they're all baby faces, with the exception of Roxanne Perez, who I think we would all agree would be better suited as a baby face. So that's interesting booking. And I just find the booking of Roxanne Perez, who just comes across as that natural, I know she's put in work as a heel, but as that natural underdog baby face against a Jade Cargill, I find that as interesting booking, as well as Alexa Bliss against Asuka. It's just interesting booking. So I'm going to see how that all plays out. I wanted to touch on Becky and Bayley. See, I enjoyed that segment, and the reason I enjoyed it is because I think sometimes you get these wrestlers, especially these veteran ones, they get in the ring and they want to make sure that if they're going to cut promos against one another or engage in a conversation, that it doesn't come across like you talk, then I talk, then you talk, then I talk. They want to try and make it come across more natural, which will involve maybe someone stepping over someone's line, someone butting in where it feels like they shouldn't have. But I actually appreciate that more. There's more of an effort to make it sound more natural than overly produced. And I think that's what they were going for with that segment. So if it come across awkward, I think it may have been by design. And I don't mind that.
I did see your comment referencing that earlier, and I do just want to clarify. When I say that I felt the promo was awkward, I wasn't referring to the pacing and the cadence of, the two bouncing off each other. Because, Jason, I completely agree. I love more naturalistic promos. I love when it feels like two people with two egos talking to each other rather than pausing and essentially making, I call it battling with speeches, like I'm going to make my little 3-sentence speech, then you do yours.
It's like presidential debates. You have 2 minutes and the red light goes on and you have to stop.
Exactly. But where I thought the promo was awkward is it felt like a promo in search of a point. It was just the two of them talking and trying to, it felt like Bayley was trying to focus on one thing that didn't really land with the oomph that they wanted it to, and they just kept moving on, and it just all felt like it came across very muted at the end of the day, when given the history that both of them had, it really could have been an electric segment on the level of like Punk versus Rollins. That's kind of where I was coming from.
Yeah, it's interesting. You looked at it. What do they have to work with? Big picture. I looked at it as there's baggage and headwind over the last couple of years. Did they overcome that? And I think both are fair ways to look at it. And we can end up thinking the promo was pretty similar, but based on our expectations, it was either above or below, based on kind of the context of what we thought the potential was versus the headwind. Jason, anything else you want to add?
Well, it's just, from my point of view, Bayley comes across like what's the point she was trying to raise is that she's very secure in her legacy and everything that she's achieved. And it doesn't matter whether it's like WrestleMania or Raw or SmackDown. She's going to go out there and she feels secure in herself. And she's, as she said, she's going to bring other people up. Now, what she actually means by that, I'm not entirely sure, but I get where she's coming from. Whereas Becky Lynch, Bayley's portraying her as being insecure, but Becky's saying, no, I'm not insecure. And it's all about, your insecurity with your legacy and how you feel as an actual person and what you're projecting out there. So it's basically Bayley calling, Becky, you're full of crap, and then Becky coming back at her. So I see the point and where they were going with that. Now, if that didn't hit with everyone, that's fair enough, but that's where I see they're going with that.
Yeah.
And just quickly with Karrion Kross, I enjoyed Karrion Kross's character, but I didn't really notice much about the bumping or whatnot, and not to psychoanalyze him, but I guess, Karrion Kross is a well-built guy. He's a bit of a badass in real life, like obviously with judo and whatnot, and you've probably seen the clips of him snapping those baseball bats. Maybe he feels like in some level, because he is a bit of a badass and he knows he can handle himself, he doesn't feel comfortable overly bumping too much because it's, in his mind, maybe it's unrealistic. And maybe he was taught that growing up by whoever.
Well,
so there might be something to that.
Nothing you just said is inconsistent with the fact that WWE main event wrestlers who are taller than him, because he isn't above average in height ultimately, amongst main eventers or even mid card guys, they don't want to wrestle a guy who won't bump for them. Aaron Cross can have whatever rationalizations he wants when he's fighting guys the size of Adam Cole, but I mean, the fact is in the end, it was all about what will be different about him on the main roster, not was he used well in NXT or TNA. And in NXT, he was a monster, but he's not on the main roster in WWE. And the style is such where they're not going to tell a story about a guy Adam Cole's size creating a lot of movement for him. So it was just more wrestlers just going, yeah, I mean, the main roster, main event guys are not going to put up with someone who walks in and doesn't sell for him. That's all I was just stating a fact, not so much a judgment on him. He might think he's badass and but I mean, ultimately he just doesn't look comfortable bumping. But I also think you're right, Jason. It fit his gimmick up until he's opposite of multimillionaire WrestleMania veterans, and they're going to want him to bump for him, and it's just not something he does. I don't think he refuses to. I just don't think it's style-wise something he ever really developed a skill for or is comfortable doing in the type of quantities that you have to if you're not Omos at this point. Yeah.
And I agree with what you said, Tej, that his type of character, I find that character intriguing, but it really does suit more of a slimy type of manager that the managers can get away with saying what they're saying, that the wrestler's going to feel like, oh, look, there's no point me being physical against this person because I've got nothing to gain here. But that slimy type of person that sort of chips away at you and says the things in the back of your mind. Like, we know the character he's playing, the little devil on his shoulder, but Karrion Kross isn't a little devil. So sooner or later, the character's a good character to have on a TV show. It's just maybe not suited to someone of his size and stature. That's where maybe the disconnect could be.
He should stop going to the gym.
I want to stop that.
That's the solution.
The guy's got talent. He's just there's something there. But anyway,
get really fat and sit in a wheelchair. And there was a manager back in the day. Why am I forgetting the Smoky Mountain Wrestling manager? Who was a chubby bald guy and he'd sit in a wheelchair and manage. So it's been done, but we're 15 years away.
I was going to say, well, I've found my next rabbit hole.
Yes. Yep.
All right. Good on you guys. I'll leave it at that. Good show. See ya.
Thanks,
Jason. Thank you,
Jason. Yep. All right, chat room. Tell us who I'm talking about. Do some research.
Yeah, please do. Because I have never heard of this before, and something tells me I'm about to watch all the matches this guy was ever involved in.
I'm seeing if my instant search. No, this is obscure enough. It didn't come up just as like a top return. Oh, Ron Wright. There it is.
Ron Wright.
Yep.
What did you Google? Bald guy in wheelchair wrestling.
Smoky Mountain Wrestling fat manager in wheelchair. He was
Mr. Wright. If you're still out there, no offense.
Think he is. I don't think he's out there anymore.
Rest in peace, sir.
Don't announce his death if I'm wrong. I think that was a long time ago. I don't think he's still. He claimed to be a crippled old man who needed to find wrestlers to manage to earn money for hip and heart operations. He often interfered in matches and acted in ways that drew the ire of the audience, further enhancing his heel persona. And Dirty White Boy is one of his clients. So that is AI's overview. I do not guarantee accuracy, but it sounds right. Yeah.
Look, that is incredible heel heat. Now we know where the next strong gimmick idea came from, or Pretty Deadly. That's incredible. That is well done. We
have the whole history of Smoky Mountain Wrestling covered in the Pro Wrestling Torch weekly newsletter. Back issues and a full VIP membership unlocks. We're not done yet, by the way, but I'm going to sneak a quick plug in here. The full VIP membership unlocks our library, back issues dating back to the late 1980s. Start to finish, excitement over Smoky Mountain Wrestling. Jim Cornette doing Torch Talk, long-form interviews with me, talking about his dream to start a territory again. And then when things didn't go great, some promoting tactics that sort of backfired and were controversial, and Jim Cornette didn't like our coverage, and that led to like death threats and bunch of nonsense and anger over our coverage. But it was quite the ride covering Smoky Mountain Wrestling. And it kind of overlapped with ECW. So Cornette was trying to do old school territory and Paul Heyman is trying to do counterculture, forward leaning, hardcore. It was interesting, but yeah, you can read those Torch Talks with Jim Cornette that I conducted way back in the early 90s during that exciting phase, and read the letter section and the Torch Talks when he got mad at us because he did some promoting tactics that had a lot of pushback. So a lot of gems in the in the back issue section, pwtorch.com/govip. Gives you details on all the pricing points, all the options for VIP membership, Patreon, Spotify, native podcast Apple app using your Apple account, or credit card, debit card, or PayPal. All kinds of ways to pay, all kinds of ways to unlock exclusive content. That full VIP membership gives you an ability to customize your RSS feed on your podcast app so that you can have all the post pay-per-view roundtables on one feed, all the retro shows that we run from 18 years ago. Fascinating Wade Keller hotlines, Bruce Mitchell audio shows. By the way, I'm bringing this up because it's factually true. I do not want to get in the mode of like selling subscriptions based on this, but we're proud of our news coverage of the Chris Benoit family tragedy. We really immersed ourselves in that. That's right around the corner on our podcast vault. One of the biggest stories in wrestling history, and my life outside of covering that came to a halt. It was weeks and weeks and weeks of intensive coverage. And we're going to be putting up on our VIP podcast feed for the first time since originally our original coverage, day-to-day coverage as we learned more. And that is just a couple weeks away on the PWTorch VIP podcast feed. And so you can create a whole separate feed with a VIP membership, a full VIP membership of just our vaults, which pretty much was just dominated, understandably so, for weeks with the whole Benoit family tragedy, the murder suicide. So that is up there. We do journalism, and that was a big story and a difficult one to cover, but one that deserved intensive coverage, and we gave it such. The VIP membership also includes our current VIP roundtables after major events, so you can join us as a VIP member, and you can hear me host, usually with Todd Martin and Rich Van, after PLEs and pay-per-views. We also have New Japan coverage with a great crew of New Japan experts and more. So check it out. You can get a 7-day free trial of just the VIP podcasts by searching PWTorch VIP on Patreon or Spotify. All right, so let's go to an email before we run out of time here and get to JB at least here. I know in last week's Raw Post Show, you talked about how you liked how the King of the Ring and Queen of the Ring tournaments seemed to have more big-name, deserving wrestlers relative to AEW tournaments in general. I actually think I disagree with this assessment based on the way that WWE has structured the tournaments. I don't give them credit for having random four-ways for the first-round matchups. To me, that's just a way to get more people in the tournament, while also not really needing to be a brave booker. What reasoning is there for the first-round matches to be four-ways with no DQs, of course? The no DQ rule is absurd. It's stupid. Triple threat four-way matches. If someone cheats or just gets disqualified, they get eliminated. If somebody interferes against somebody, it doesn't have to end the match. It creates a disadvantage, but I understand the complication. If somebody beats up one wrestler out of four, you can't disqualify the other three. So I get there's some booking complications, but you can just not book interference. You have control over that. But it is farcical in that way. I like loading up the tournament in a storyline sense. If you don't think about it in a meta sense that you're just trying to have booking loopholes and avoid people doing jobs, it added star power to the tournament. And guess what? On the men's side, you could argue 4 of the biggest stars got advanced. It wasn't just, let's put Cody in, but he won't advance past the 4-way. He did. So that to me, Tej, it was a loaded tournament with a lot of big names, both on the women's and men's side. The people who weren't involved made more sense than, say, the Continental Classic, where we don't really get an explanation from AEW why, or the Owen Hart Cup tournament, why some top names aren't in it, even if they're not busy defending a world title or in a separate feud. So I disagree with JB on that one. And the 4-way is a way to obviously not brave book. I mean, I get the, it's a cop out in a way to not give away a bunch of singles matches, but I don't know. I'm fine with it in this context, even with some reservations because of the rules.
I mean, I completely agree with that. The idea of, yes, you're getting more people on the card, more people involved in the tournament, but it's a tournament is a way to kickstart stories, either through a win, a loss, interference. There's many, many possibilities. And I think WWE has conditioned their audience and is slowly unconditioning their audience to believe that a tournament is just mindless matchups for the sake of it, and that nothing matters until you get to the final. It's not true. You're seeing both with Money in the Bank and now King and Queen of the Ring that losses are impacting wrestlers and their storylines just as much as wins are. The 4-way, it just felt a little bit expedited, and I think that's just a victim of the WWE schedule at this point. You can't run 2 tournaments simultaneously. They had to wait until Money in the Bank was done and dusted, and then you've only got 3-4 weeks until the next pay-per-view. So chop we don't have too much time.
Yeah.
Especially with, WWE doesn't have, like, compared to other shows, an abundance of wrestling on a given weekly episode of TV. So, I understand the criticism for a four-way, but it feels like a matter of necessity to achieve what they want to achieve across the board.
He says another overbooked ending. This is becoming a weekly occurrence on Raw, SmackDown, or both shows. Tej, speak to that. I mean, I get they can justify each and every one individually as advancing a storyline. It makes sense. It's chaotic. Wrestlers are going to go after their enemies. It was a lot, and it's a lot week to week. And so I try to clarify, like, I get why they do each one individually, but you have to step back and go, are we doing it too much? It's just like, it's like at your office, like you can't sell Girl Scout cookies to your coworkers every single week year round for a fundraiser. Once a year is fine. And to me, like, you could say, but it's a good cause and the cookies are yummy. Well, sure, but you still don't want to hound your coworkers to buy your kids.
Too much of a good thing.
Yeah. So in this case, it's too much of a bad thing that you can rationalize and justify as a booker. And that's my argument, is that each individual one I get, Levesque would sit here and go, well, but you have to see, we're telling the story and this makes sense and it forwards this feud, but just makes a farce of everything. And then the downside isn't just on principle, it's farcical. People get disinvested in caring about matches because they think nothing matters. None of the finishers or near falls matter until there's interference in a match. And I might not even get an announced decision. Tej.
I mean, WWE has kind of booked themselves into a major hole at this point over the past couple of years by, in their attempt to elevate every clean win and clean loss as a definitive statement that I am better than you. They've then overcompensated by protecting their top guys through interference only and cementing to their audience that any clean win automatically means the loser is shunted down the card or buried. And it's become exaggerated to such a degree that, anyone, even in a four-way where two of the competitors aren't even pinned, it feels like if they've lost, it colors the perception of their kayfabe strength to the audience too much for WWE's liking. So they got to cover all their bases with smoke and mirrors like this. And It's an issue. It really is, because, you're really starting to feel it this year in 2025 that it's leading to a lot of the matches being samey, and you don't want to run the risk of audiences kind of sitting on their hands looking at their phones for 10 or however many long minutes until the inevitable interference happened. And, the late stage bloodline, people were already starting to do that, but the stories were just so compelling that they circumvented it. You don't have that in the mid card and the undercard every single time. So it's a change that has to be made.
Yep. By the way, Mark Pescetti says Karen Cross is 6'4". He is not 6'4". I mean, you might find that on the internet somewhere, but just look at him stand next to other people. I mean, that's in high heels.
He's not a short guy. He's not.
No, definitely not.
Yeah.
But he's not. I'm not saying he's a small guy. He was much bigger than Adam Cole. But it's like 911 wasn't a giant in ECW,
sure,
but he was compared to Sabu and Taz, and others. So.
It is crazy though, just how well I do want to give some brief props to Karrion Kross and how well he portrays the presence of a big man, because I stand at 6'2", like I'm not a short guy, and I envision Karrion Kross as towering over me.
And
realistically, I know
you'd look down at him.
Yeah,
a little.
Realistically,
I
know that probably won't be the case, but.
Yeah.
That's what I imagine in my head when I picture myself standing next to Karrion Kross,
Yep. No, that's good. Yep. Ryan Solorio says, Wade whispering Taz broke me. LOL. Yes. Don't want to get yelled at. I've been yelled at by Taz over the years on the phone.
That sounds like a terrifying experience.
Once on Christmas Eve.
Christmas Eve, Taz is yelling at you.
He called me to yell at me for something I said or wrote. Too many orange decorations on the Christmas tree. I don't know. He's got a sense of humor.
Let's make it happen again, chat. Come on, goad him into this.
Taz and I.
Merry Christmas, Taz.
We've had our run-ins, but Taz, I like Taz a lot. He's a good
Taz
guy.
is great.
Seriously.
I love
him. I rib him, but I mean, he does have a sense of humor about it now, and he's one of the good dudes in wrestling. Okay, JB's email. We'll get to some of this on the flagship. We're going to sign off here. If you want to reach a bunch of people in shorts, Tej, on our YouTube channel. We got to wrap up. So thank you very much, Tej. The last sidebar on whatever Taz cost us a couple points that JB had. Thank you everybody for joining us, and thank you, Tej, and we'll talk to you all soon.
Bye.